Welcome to this video on moral reasoning and ethical theories. In this video, I want to revisit something I spoke about in an earlier video on the significance of the moral criteria of intention, act, and outcome. And I want to use those three criteria to address theories such as fundamental option theory and a number of other ethical theories, including situation ethics, utilitarianism, and proportionalism. So what makes for moral living and moral decision making? The Catechism of the Catholic Church helps us by highlighting three criteria for evaluating moral decisions. Firstly, there's the goodness of the moral object. Secondly, the intention of the agent. And thirdly, the circumstances or consequences. The Catechism means the same thing and makes more sense, I think, if we formulate the point by saying that what makes for moral process are three things. A person's intentions, what we want to do in a moral action. The person's acts, or the means, that is, the way we go about a moral action. And thirdly, the outcome or consequences, that is, the objective results of such an action. I say more about these elements or criteria in another video, and I'll link to that above, and I'll highlight that at the end of this video. For now, I think it's very important to remember intention, act, and outcome. If you take away any one of these criteria, any one of these elements, then you take away from the dignity of the moral process. That's very important. Morality is not just one thing. It's actually a compound of intention, act, and outcome. And ideally, all three components must be good. If any component is lacking, it can detract from the dignity of the moral process and compromise the dignity of the moral agent, that is, the acting person. So these threefold criteria of morality bring the imperative for us to exercise our moral freedom by firstly, having good intentions, secondly, seeking good outcomes, and thirdly, to do this by means or acts that are also good. That means that we should not do good things with less than noble intent. We should not seek bad consequences, and importantly, we should not do evil in the hope that good can come about. In the light of those three criteria or elements, let's look at some approaches to morality and get some insight into them. So I've spoken about the things that are done by a moral agent. We've spoken about the human person, our intentions, acts, and the outcomes that we bring about. That leads to a good question, and a question that we should be asking ourselves whenever we give consideration to an action. And that is not just, what am I doing, but what sort of person is this making me? A moral action reflects the person, their intention, and their moral acts. A part of us is in what we do, and vice versa. It's inconsistent then, for example, and I'll use a couple of moral examples. It's inconsistent to say that I'm a generally chaste person if I'm fooling around every weekend. It's inconsistent to say that I'm fundamentally honest if I steal frequently. That's our entree into fundamental option theory. Fundamental option theory focuses not so much on individual acts, but on the long-term orientation of a person. So what is most important to fundamental option theory is what we would call the endpoint, the goal, the objective, the option that we've chosen for our future. Now, to an extent, I think there's a lot of good in that statement. We should have long-term goals. We should have that fundamental option to be good. But the question is, do individual acts matter? And to bring some clarity to that, Let's take fundamental option out of the moral sphere. Let's say, for example, that your fundamental option is to win a sporting championship, a football championship, a cricket or baseball championship. This is a really good fundamental option to have. But is it enough? Is it enough to say that you have a genuine orientation towards the championship if you are not attending to every part of your game? What about training? What about diet? What about practice? In other words, what's the use of the game plan if you don't actually play the game? What about saying that you have a fundamental option for health if you're smoking cigarettes frequently? The reality is, and you can talk to any doctor about this, every cigarette, every act of smoking matters. Now, just to be clear on this point, when I've given this presentation live, people have asked me about the Catechism of the Catholic Church, paragraph 2290, and what it says about smoking. So they've asked me, Dr. Ogilvie, do you think smoking is a sin? The answer that I usually give is that smoking won't necessarily send you to hell. It just makes you smell like you've been there. Back to morality. I think there is a lot to commend fundamental option theory. Having that long-term option, making that fundamental choice is very important. But the reality is that individual acts do matter. They contribute to us living out or not that fundamental option. So the question is, and I think the deeper question is, not just what is our long-term option, but what am I making myself by my moral activity? Perhaps another perspective would be this. Fundamental option is good, but is it the only thing that's important? Is it also important that we act in a way that is consistent with our fundamental option?